am Jamar Allen.
And I am Jimmy Evans.
And this is Barbershop Therapy. Well, I'm always the only one.
Hold on, say it one more time.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much. And we have a special guest today.
Super special guest. Who we got?
Jay Jerkins.
Jay Jerkins. Mr. J, what do you do?
So I'm a family law specialist. I'm a family law attorney. So I handle child custody, domestic law here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and Wake County, Durham County.
Okay.
Something kind of unique about you.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I'm a family law specialist, which is in North Carolina, about 5% of attorneys can specialize or do specialize. That means that we have gone and taken extra tests, we take extra classes, we practice in this area exclusively, and we are trained and we are up on the latest case law and everything that deals with our family law content. So,
do any of those other 5 look like us?
Well, no, I'm the first African-American male family law specialist in North Carolina.
Say it again for the people in the back.
First African-American male specialized in North Carolina for family law. So I'm excited about that because I give my people a chance to have somebody that looks like them that know that's doing what they got to do.
For sure, and especially in a society that we can look at in studies and different things and see where they've kind of targeted breaking up
the deficiencies that have occurred.
Yeah, with
right. Well, the interesting thing is when you go into a lot of our courts here in Wake County and Durham County, you see a lot of us, but either we're unrepresented or we're represented by people that don't look like us.
Right.
Which is, I'm of course, I have my colleagues, whatever the case may be, but sometimes you need someone who understands your experience that can talk from a position of, I know what that's like. I know how you grew up. I know what the culture is like. I get it, but here's how we have to move. Here's what we got to do to make sure that you and your family are good.
For sure.
So I mean, I think that's super, super important. And I have an associate who is a black male who I'm trained up to come in and hopefully be the second one in North Carolina to do so. 'Cause I think it's important to be able to see us in those roles. So
absolutely important. For
sure.
How long have you been doing this, Jay?
So I've been practicing for doing family law. I have a firm. I've been doing that for 7 years.
Okay. Where'd you graduate from?
I graduated from Central Law School.
Oh, another HBCU.
Yes.
Jamar, get off the phone.
Well, yeah, he said what he said, but I was actually was getting a question from somebody that I wanted to ask him. That kind of gives me an excuse.
No. Go ahead.
I said no. It does. It's important because I don't. So all right. So Jay, I was excited about when we did the Zoom and stuff. I was excited about talking to you and different things because this is one of my favorite. But I didn't want to put too much of my own personal stuff out here because the comments would get interesting. But but it is questions, especially like for my son. Like he just received custody of his son, and we're kind of helping him raise him and get through that part. And that was just something that with the mistakes that I made or the lack of knowledge I had when it came to like my oldest son. I had my first son at like 16.
Yeah.
I didn't know. All I knew is I turned around, looked up, I was on child support, and I was like, what? And then, now I'm mad because I'm like, well, like what does that even mean? Like, I didn't know what it meant, and I signed affidavits. I did all this stuff. I didn't know what any of that meant at that time. So I was able, here we are some 20 some years later, he gets in a situation where, he has he's intimate with somebody, they create a baby, we look up 3 weeks later, baby's on our step.
Oh wow.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, well, I'm not giving any documentation, but so and so and so, and it's like, all right, let's just chill, let's consult an attorney. Went and consulted an attorney and different things like that. But had I not gone through these horrible situations, myself, I wouldn't have the wisdom I had now. So a lot of my questions are going to be coming from his perspective versus mine. And we can talk about mine off air and not just pay you a retainer. But I looked at that and it was a process. It was like months before we was like, all right, we just got to go ahead and go to court because he's not going to bring documentation. Yeah. So, and then it was like, what kind of custody and different things like that. Can you explain different types of custody and how that affects support, visitation, everything? Because we hear a lot about child support.
Right.
But I got a rude awakening one time. I went into court And I was like, all right, I'll pay the child support, but when do I see my son?
Right.
And the judge looked at me and was like, that's another courtroom.
That's
This
another
ain't visitation. I was like, we hear about the baby though, you know, and it was culture shock for me because
surprisingly,
I was like,
you get that all the time because there is a component of child support, the agency. Child support enforcement is a whole different situation than actual custody court. Now, you can have most attorneys file custody and child support in what we call our custody court and domestic court down, you know, in Wake County is downstairs. But the fifth floor, child support enforcement, is its own entity, and it's a nationwide thing. So no matter where you're at, child support can get you.
Interpol's custody.
So that is interesting. You get it all the time in child support. You get it with people they run the numbers. Someone comes in, they're running numbers telling you got to pay this, this, and this. They're like, what's going on? Who is baby? I haven't seen the baby. What's going on? And they're like, well, we don't deal with that. Here's what you got to pay. And so people walk out offended. I mean, obviously, like I come to court for my baby. All I get is now I have to pay this. And I still, some people not seeing a baby or whatever case may be. So I want to get to the one thing that you said about signing an affidavit. So people might hate me for this. It's awkward, but I'm a big fan of, I'm not going to sign anything. I tell my clients, we're not going to sign a birth certificate in the hospital. We're not going to do an affidavit until we know for sure.
For sure.
Because
for sure, what does for sure mean?
I'm telling you, you don't make any friends doing this. But I'm saying, I need a test.
Absolutely.
I need a test.
Absolutely.
I need to be sure, because you do have situations like, it's in media or whatever the case may be, or songs, Kanye rap around the songs.
18 years.
Yeah. You find out, hey, this isn't
my child.
It's not my child biologically. Now,
right.
If I raise a child, I'm a component. I think,
for sure.
Raise his child is yours.
Absolutely.
But biologically, this is not my child. And I've signed an affidavit, or if I put my name on that birth certificate, that is legally my child. So even though it's not biologically my child, now it's legally my child. And with legal comes a whole different set of responsibilities. Because like I tell everybody, you have a constitutional right to parent your child. That's a right. Just like you have a right to bear arms. Doesn't mean you have to. You have a constitutional right to parent.
Got you.
But you have a constitutional obligation to support your child. So that's a difference between a right and an obligation.
Hold on, Jay. So what you're saying is you can sign your way into a problem.
Right. You can sign your way into a problem. If I go and sign my name on a birth certificate, then they can legally hold me responsible for child support and the obligations that come along with this child, especially if nobody else steps up and comes up, or I can't find the biological father, because I've signed.
Even if you find out a year, 10 years later, that's not your child, but you've legally obligated yourself to that support of that child for the rest of its adolescent life?
Well, so there is a process where you can go and get if you find out the biological father, you can go and get the biological father and the biological mother. You can file against both of them. They can go to court, they can do the test, and then we could have that process of trying to get them off. But you're still paying child support during that time. You signed up. And when you sign that, you say, I'm legally the father of this child. So with legal comes different responsibilities. And I know it doesn't make people feel good, but my job is to give you advice. Now, I can't tell you, say buy flowers, set up a nice dinner, whatever you got to do, and say, hey, my attorney told me that, he kind of strong-armed me. He won't work with me until I get a test. Whatever you got to do. I tell people, I'll take the blame.
Somebody got to get thrown under the bus.
I'm going home and I'm asleep. But I'll take the blame. But that's something that we have to think about, and you have to think about it beforehand, because when you get in the hospital, you holding that little baby.
Hold on, Jay, time out, because we all gonna get guilted into. How could you possibly think that was somebody other than you?
He looked just like you.
He got your nose.
He was my cousin.
He light skinned just like you.
Hope it's not your cousin.
It was my cousin, baby.
You get that all the time, but for me, it's the awkwardness is worth, number one, me knowing. Now, if I decide to be in this child's life and raise this child, when I know, that's completely fine. At least I have the knowledge. I know, and I'm making a decision to raise this child,
For sure.
even though it's not mine.
sure.
But for me, I want to know, and the awkwardness is worth, even if it's 5 years, 6 years. 'Cause like I said, there is a process that your name could come off, but that process takes you finding the biological parent. So I would like that process to be done, and it's worth that awkward situation, that awkward conversation to save
For sure.
the time and the effort and the money back in the end.
So one more question with that. If that happens to be the case, would you be able to recoup any of that money that you've paid into child support over that time frame?
No, I've never seen anybody recoup money.
Bruh, where were you at when I signed my
I mean, you
first
signed it.
Sprint
You
contract?
signed it.
So it's a contract.
You
essentially.
signed saying that you are the legal parent. So that's your mistake. Wow. That's not anybody else's mistake.
Yeah, this definitely
Because you had the ability. They don't hold a gun to your head and say you got to sign in this hospital. Now she might, but the hospital doesn't.
It's the social gun that's held to you.
Right.
Yeah,
Because then you don't want to be I call you a deadbeat. You don't sign in the hospital. You ain't
part.
good for nothing. And some people, I have seen it in cases where if you're not signing at the hospital, then you might not get to see your child because now I've offended you. So I get there's a you have to play balancing act, but it's kind of what's important here.
Yeah.
I'm now hopefully if you're married, it's not even an issue. But hopefully if you're in a 6-year relationship, hopefully you're praying that
for sure.
But if it's a situation where, hey, we had.
Right.
We got together one night and whatever the case may be.
Right.
I mean, it's worth anytime I think it's worth taking a look, but it's worth the uncomfortable conversation.
I think so. In my immaturity, I can look back and be transparent and say, in my immaturity, the minute I got put on child, a couple of my kids I didn't know about until like down the road.
Right.
So I wasn't there through the process. I wasn't in a good mental space. I didn't really care back in the day. If you called me, like everybody was saying, "Hey, I'm pregnant." Like, yeah, we know that game. Like, no, I'm not giving you money for this. No, I'm not getting nah. When you had a baby, let's have a test and we'll talk. And it was just like, because if you're trying to play with me, I'm not playing those games. But then when like down the road, you have this she's offended, right? So now down the road is a couple years later, you get a test and you got to get the test and So now I'm offended because not only do I have to pay this, but I got to pay back support. And it's just, but it was just in immaturity and not having access to YouTube or, places like this where just you get education about it, right? To information to understand that, hey, like get this under control. And now it's a credit thing and it shows up on your credit. So like, do you think at any point this was strategically used to be divisive or do you think it's just kind of like, it makes sense? Like,
how the system is set up. Is the system set up first fairly? Secondly, is it set up to the point where as a paternal?
Paternal.
As the paternal parent, is it skewed that our rights are not shown to us, like in that system? So to piggyback a little bit, going into custody, we always present it as a paternal with child support first opposed to custody.
Yeah.
So
always.
They never say that I never had the information of, hey, custody affects the child support.
Right.
And when that comes to you and you again are handed a bill, when your thought is, hey, if we're doing this together, we're both adults, then let's come to this agreement together, and then it's turned into a thing in court.
I definitely think it's weird because a lot of times we are presented with child support first. And now when you go to child support, at least the agency, you can tell them, hey, paternity is at issue, and they will do a test before they do anything.
We don't
a
know
lot
that.
of people so a lot of people
For sure.
don't say paternity is at issue, and I err on the side of paternity is at issue, just like we just talked about. If I'm not 100% sure, and I'm not sure we can ever be 100% sure, if I'm not married or if I'm not in a very long-term relationship, I'm going to say paternity is at issue and we need to do a test.
Right.
All it is an extra They send you guys to do a test. You have to pay half of it, and the test results come back. Then they'll go forward. But I think I would advise my people to just file for custody. Why would you file for custody? And it has file for custody and paternity, because you file for custody and paternity, then you're also going to get a test, and you've already started child custody as before you go.
Who knows that as a 16-year-old?
Right.
As a 33-year-old?
Well, that's the thing, and that's why I'm glad to be doing this, because it needs to be more education on how to handle these situations.
Yeah.
We don't need to get in the thing of, hey, I have people come to me all the time. I haven't seen my child in 3 years, and now I just got child support. Well, first, and I know we keep trying to lead into it. The custody affects child support, but why wouldn't you go file for custody first?
Okay, so
and put the pressure on them. Then you got a schedule, and then
let's do this. Let's do this right here. So this is where the discrepancy of information, because a caseworker typically gives the mother
child support caseworker
gives them all the information that they need to use in these cases, right? Or does not give any of that information when confronted with the father at all. So, Jay, can you just tell us what the proper procedures are in a quick overview, in a nutshell, of how these things should go?
If you are, like I said, if you're not married and find out someone is pregnant, what I would do is I would be there as much as I could be there if I thought this was my child, right? I would be there throughout the process so I know what's going on. You never want to be in a situation where I have some people say, I wasn't even invited to the hospital. I didn't even know my child was born. I try to be as involved as possible and supportive as possible.
Right.
But for me, I wouldn't sign that birth certificate when I'm in the hospital. I would wait. I would get a test. I would know for sure, and you could possibly even ask for a test in the hospital, but I would know for sure, then I would sign. And once I am legally up there, I have all the rights and responsibilities though, as the mom. There is no upper level, higher up parent once we have signed and I have the same rights.
What are those rights though? Because I remember, and again, as in being completely transparent, I wasn't always the most responsible person in the world, and there's still some growth in the area I got to get to, because some things is just like, you irk me, I'm not going, and it's just some things you don't want to sacrifice your peace for, but a lot of it is lack of information. So if we look at custody, like what are my rights as far as a non-custodial parent? Is that what it's called? What are my rights?
And explain those different types of custody parameters.
Right. Yeah. So if there's no paperwork, so you guys don't have a court document for custody, or you guys don't have a parenting agreement, there is no, I'm more of a parent than you are. It's at this point. So for instance, if you had your child, if you got your child on a Tuesday, and there's no paperwork, no anything, and you were supposed to, y'all had some, understand that you were supposed to return on Wednesday, and you didn't return on Wednesday, and someone calls the police, they're going to come in and say, well, do you have any paperwork? Well, without any paperwork, you're just as much a parent as he's a parent, and I can't take from one parent and give it to another parent. And that's just an example to say, we're not second class parents. You get what I'm saying? Like,
gotcha.
I feel like society and we make ourselves second class parents when we go through that situation, but that's not truly how it is. So when we deal with custody in North Carolina, we deal with legal custody and physical custody. Legal custody is major decision making. Who's making the decisions on behalf of the minor child? Obviously we're talking about schooling and doctors and things that extracurricular activities, decisions where the child is living. Those are major decisions that we look at. In North Carolina, without any paperwork, and normally when there is, after you go to court, both parents are 50-50. You have joint legal custody for the most part, in most cases.
So is this inherent? Is that, out the gate?
The court starts from a position of joint legal custody. That's where we start from. And without any paperwork, we start from a position of joint legal custody, which says, hey, if we're making decisions, we're making them together. It's not a situation where you make a decision and then you come and tell me what decision you made and say, hey, I informed you. It's not informing. It's, hey, I'm thinking about, even when young, this is the pediatrician I'm thinking about. Hey, you look at this one. Well, I'm bringing this one to the table. You're bringing this one. Let's talk to both of them. We'll figure it out, right? Yeah. And you need a pediatrician before the child is born, right? So that's what I'm saying. Even if I don't know, I'm still being involved as much as involved as I can be, because those are legal decisions that are going to matter. The pediatrician is going to matter because if you live in Durham and I live in Johnson County, and you pick a pediatrician in Durham and I'm working in Johnson County, I'm never going to be involved with what's going on at a pediatrician. And then that's going to be used against me later on. Not saying that you have to attend every one of them, but at least to be able to say, hey, I do want to attend the shots. I do, whatever the case may be. So that stuff matters in legal decisions. And as they grow up, are we going to do school? What daycare are we going to do? What extracurricular? Even now, like I have a 9-month-old. Are we doing aqua tots? Are we doing whatever? So, I mean, it doesn't, legal custody doesn't just come in when they're in high school and you got to decide football or gymnastics, or we got to decide colleges or whatever the case may be. Legal decision is those decisions that are going to matter 3 to 6 months down the road. And we start from a point of joint legal custody. So that's why I try to tell people, it's not a situation where you have to rely on, what decision is the other person making? What decision is, and I know where you talking to males a lot. I know there are some males who have custody, and the ladies are the non-custodial parent. But in most cases, you're not waiting to get information. We need to be proactive. Hey, what's going on?
That's and the proactive. We need to get to though, Jay, is not like now. What Jamar is saying earlier is, we're never informed to that extent, right?
And you need to be, because
but no one at this point in our lives, we've never been taught to to pursue our rights, because we didn't know our rights, and when we go into the system, we get bullied.
Right. And I think if what we're doing now, having this conversation, I'm saying do this. Try to be involved, keep trying to be involved, and do it in writing. Do it via text message. Don't get weird and start emailing if y'all never emailed, but do it through text messages and keep it. I've even had people do it in Instagram or whatever the case may be, because I can go to court and argue, no, he hasn't been absent. He's been shut out. Here's what we have. I've been trying to get this. And I have had cases where I've gotten my client, it happened to be a father in this case, the case I'm thinking about, he's gotten, custody has been switched to him when the custody case has been brought, because we were able to show it's not that I haven't been involved. I've been trying. And then the court would look back and say, well, I can't trust this other parent with decision making, because if I give them decision making, I give them physical custody, they're potentially going to keep shutting this parent out. It's in the best interest to have both parents involved, and I can trust this dad to keep the other person involved because he's been trying this whole time.
So, Jay, I got a question, right?
Okay.
This is going to be interesting.
Do you think the court systems actually look at things from that perspective?
I think so. What y'all not going to do is get me in trouble with the people I gotta go practice in front of every day. So
we'll get out of that. Let me rephrase that.
No, I do think the courts that I practice in now have they hear the cases that we bring before them. Now I have a lot of older people who say, hey, when I was coming up, the courts didn't do X, Y, and Z, or the court didn't look at X, Y, and Z. I think now, if we present our case, and the more of us that we have in the courthouse presenting cases, that's a plug for anybody who's trying, on this path, who wants to be in this field. But the more of us that we have that can say, you have to listen to us. You have to listen to our client, and our clients matter. I think that's helping us get a better result.
Absolutely.
And having our judges hear what is really going on. But if I'm telling you, if you are walking into court and you are unrepresented, not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that you always have to have.
That's my next question.
Right. Yep. Not saying you always have to have, because I understand finances play a part. Right. I charge for mine. My wife likes to eat food and likes to have lights on. So I mean, I definitely charge. But if you're walking in and you're unrepresented, and you have the other party who is represented, or you have the other party who is a better communicator, That's the whole
Right.
thing. Sometimes you get in court, and I've heard judges say this. Sometimes you get in court and you side with the better
argument.
witness, not the
Absolutely.
better parent.
Right.
And it's hard because once you're in court, you're before someone in a black robe
That's
for an hour,
whole new
or 2
world.
hours,
Man.
and you have people who are skilled in playing people or
Yep.
playing up to whatever the situation is that can talk to a judge and say this and say that. So I'm saying, even if you cannot afford an attorney to represent you, it's your best interest to go talk to somebody. And even in my office, I offer, I say, look, even if you can't retain me fully, come to my office, still like pay a consult fee or whatever, and let's prep your case. Let's look at what you're going to present. Let's look at how you're going to present it. Let's talk about maybe some exhibits that you want to enter in so the judge can see what's going on. Because it doesn't, a lot of us, we don't, I'm talking about males.
You can prepare.
Preparing and our communication is not always where it needs to be.
Yeah.
So we can't go in front of somebody and really articulate, because either and I'm speaking for myself, because this is my issue. When I get frustrated, I'm shutting it down.
For sure.
Like I get agitated.
That's what we talked about
I ain't trying to talk.
Keep going back
And then I've seen our males in court like, just fine, whatever. To the judge, I'm like, no, this is your case. Don't shut down right now.
But Jay,
he gets
that's
frustrated.
the thing is, like you just said, a lot of times our counterparts, our females are better at articulating their argument, which frustrates us because on so many different levels we haven't been taught that communication skill in a tense or a possible hostile environment like that, and our emotions take over and get us frustrated. A foreign environment.
Because really new territory. They using terminology and language you understand. You like,
and that's,
wait, what?
I mean, that's one. Taking a step back, when you go to, first of all, you don't have to go to court for custody. I want to tell everybody that you do not have to go to court for custody or child support. We can handle some stuff between ourselves as parents. We don't have to always let someone into our case to make these decisions in an hour or 2 hours. We can get, even if you guys can't do it yourself, you can either hire an attorney and y'all do a mediation and come up with an agreement outside or whatever the case may be. So I do want to plug that. Like, I love court. I love going to court, but we don't have to always be, because I feel like, and my colleagues might disagree with me, I feel like we are in court way more than we should be, and then I see other people in court. You get what I'm saying? Like there's, and I know some people just want their day in court. They just want to air it out, whatever the case may be. We don't have to. But if we are going to court, if we're going to get to that position, we have to know language. You have to know that when you go to court, they're judging you on being a parent and being a co-parent. There's two different things. I can be a great parent and be a terrible co-parent. I can be a good co-parent, but not be so great as parenting. So I need to know that. I need to know that custody is physical and legal, like we were just talking about. And I need to know what we're going into. There's different custody. So there's 50-50 custody, where I have the same amount of time as mom. Or and I'm speaking from mom or dad. Well, I have the same amount of time as mom, or mom and dad have the same amount of time, where I'm doing either a week on, a week off, or I'm doing you have Monday, Tuesday, I have Wednesday, Thursday, we alternate the weekend, or whatever it looks like to be able to split the month evenly down the center, or split the year evenly down the center. And then there's what we call joint custody, where it says I have at least 123 overnights. So I can have a joint custody schedule without having a 50-50 custody schedule. I can have 123
What's the significance
overnights.
of that 123? Because that number is very important. And again, stuff we don't know. You know what I'm saying? Because it gets glazed over in court.
So 123 overnights is what the court calls a joint custody schedule. And what that helps with is in child support. And I don't mean to say that we're going to custody just to get out of paying child support. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But that's child support looks at that joint custody schedule. And custody in North Carolina, when we're talking about how many days, we're not talking about days, we're talking about overnights. We're only talking about overnight. So if you have this child from 7 a.m. in the morning to 7 p.m. at night, and then they go, Mom, you still didn't get that overnight. So when you're looking at trying to get 123 overnights, you have to know they're actually overnight.
This feels like war.
Yeah. So and that's the major thing, because
like war.
not to belittle our court system or anything like that, but it's a game, and you're playing a game without knowing the lingo, without knowing the rules, without knowing how to foul. So then we're behind the 8 ball, and I'm not, like I said, I'm talking to everybody who has to do it, moms and dads alike. You have to know what you're looking at if you're going to court, and like I said, we don't have to go to court. We really don't. I would love to see more of us not actually go to court. And
so we're not going to court, and you go into mediation. Define the word mediation and how that works in our favor and in our children's favor.
So you can do a mediation, or you can just do a parents agreement on your own. But if you decide to go to mediation, you get someone who is certified as a mediator, and we have plenty of those family law mediators in the area. And you can call up their office and say, "Hey, me and such want to come in for mediation." Now, our mediators most of our mediators charge. So I mean, it could be anywhere from $150 an hour to $300 an hour, whatever the case may be. Usually, you guys split that down the middle. But if it's just custody, hopefully. And the reason why they charge, because it's an incentive for y'all not to come in there and start talking about, well, 1982, da 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 da.
You know you're paying by the hour, right?
So, but if you call them up, you guys split that up as far as the charge, $150 an hour. You guys split that, and you'll go in there and you have a mediator who is normally an attorney who practices in family law, who's been practicing for years in family law, knows our judges, knows our system, has heard similar facts or whatever. No facts are the same. And they can say, look, here's what I think. And you can have somebody who directs you on how to do it. Because a lot of people would do an agreement and I say, okay, well, what's the holidays look like? Oh, we didn't think about it. Okay, what's summer look like? Okay, we didn't think about that. Or how y'all gonna do the child's birthday? Y'all can split it, y'all can alternate it, or we didn't think about that. What's going on with the check? Who's claiming on taxes? All this stuff that
we've seen people getting knocked down, drag out fights over taxes.
Especially these past couple years with the stimulus and all this stuff. It's been crazy. But that's what I'm saying. We can sit down with somebody who has a bigger view of things instead of we're just saying, hey, I want them on, Thursday through Tuesday. And we can sit down with a mediator and say, this is everything that's going to come up. Are they in track out? Are they in year round? Are they in traditional? Are we, how are y'all going to do if somebody wants to move? If somebody wants to move 25 minutes. Do y'all have a come back to say y'all have to do mediation? Or all this stuff we can do. Now, if you file a custody claim in our courts in North Carolina, you have to go to mediation. It's court-ordered mediation, right? There's a few ways you can waive it, but it's court-ordered mediation where you sit down with somebody. Now we're doing it via Zoom with COVID, and they try to get a resolution together. I'm going to tell you this, though, in no disrespect, they do a great job, and they see a lot of people. But I always think that because it's a free mediation, when you're invested, and you have to pay a mediator, and a mediator is getting paid to kind of come up with the agreement with you, everybody is a little bit more invested. Because if we go to court-ordered mediation, they're not going to force you to stay in a room. It's court-ordered mediation. It's not ordered for you to come and negotiate. It's ordered for you to attend. Just simply attend.
Just to be there.
Yeah, you have to be there.
That's it.
They don't come in and say, well, at mediation, you didn't talk. You cannot talk if you want to. But when you're vested, when you paying somebody, you're trying to reach an agreement.
So again, court ordered, you're not having to pay.
No, so when you file a custody action in North Carolina, the first step after you file it, you get them served. They give you a court ordered mediation orientation date where you go in and learn about mediation. And then you get a mediation actual date where you guys go. And the attorneys aren't allowed, just the parties and the mediator.
But that court ordered mediator is kind of like a court appointed attorney versus. What you're saying is mentality-wise, if we get a mediator on our own and we're paying out, it's different. You're going to be
I'm not saying the mediator's different. I'm saying your investment is different.
Yeah, like mentality-wise.
Right,
like
my mentality is
motivated.
Right.
Everybody is motivated.
Everybody's. Okay.
And at the end of the day, and like I said, I'm not going to get in trouble with anybody because they do an excellent job. And they work with a lot of people. Yeah, they work with a lot of people. But if they don't settle your case,
it don't matter to them.
There's no investment for the court-ordered mediators at that stage, right? So, but if somebody's getting paid for this,
absolutely,
and we're paying for this, now there's incentive on all three parties to make this
I think if you guys truly feel like you can stay out of court, it's worth a try. Because I always tell people, this is your child. This is your life. You're not gonna ever be able to explain. You can explain to me over a course of conversations and meetings, but you're never gonna be explained to a judge in an hour or 2 hours where you having to split that time. When you go into court and you have 2 hours on the calendar, that means you get an hour, I get an hour. And I mean, if you have an attorney, that's opening statements, closing statement, and then cross-examination, direct. It's not a lot of time to be able to really get it out. And especially the older your child is, you got to tell them what happened in the beginning, what's happening now, what you can do later on, what you think is in the best interest. That's a lot. You're never going to get someone who can fully sit down and go through your life and say, all right, I think this is the best for you guys, when you're going in front of a judge for 2 hours. Yeah. You go sit down in mediation, y'all can sit there and really get everything together, or y'all can do it together without mediation.
So my question is, all right, what if I'm checking out Barbershop Therapy right now, right? Mm-hmm. I'm on YouTube, I'm on Facebook, I see a small clip and I'm like, what's this about? And I'm checking it out. And I'm realizing, man, I got these options, right?
Right.
I got these options as a dad or as a mom, and let's say I'm a mom recovering or something happened and the dad, guys, he could afford an attorney and I couldn't, and I lost. I'm a parent, right? And I want visitation. I don't know where they are. How do I find them? What public information is there for me? And let's say I can't afford, let's say I'm working at Walmart right now, and I can't afford an attorney of any kind. I can't afford the mediation. I can't afford any of that. You know what I'm saying? I can't afford none of it. I gotta go do it myself. Like, what does it look like trying to find that information, and what public information can I use to try and find them? And
trying to find your child?
Trying to find them and the information, and what does it look like to go down there and file it myself? Or is there, because I know Central has I don't know what school you said.
Yeah, Central. Yep. They have a clinic.
Yeah, Central has a clinic. Yep. I remember it being
I talked about that.
Okay. But yeah,
so you can file it yourself. I mean, in Wake County, all the counties should be, but definitely Wake, Durham, Johnson County, they have a file it yourself packet that you can go down and file it yourself. Mm-hmm. You have to fill out the information. It has to be notarized. So you notarize it, bring it back, file it, and get it served. The finding is the issue, though, because normally with us, if you hire our office, we're going to use our resources, DMV or whatever search engines we have, PIs, things of that nature, to try to find the child. So, because you can have all the documents in the world, but if you can't get the party served, the case is not going to get started.
That right? Part.
And if you can't, even if you get an order from the court, but you can't find your child to be able to give them the order. Here's the order or whatever. You have paper. I mean, it's really what it is. So I'm not exactly sure what kind of resources you could do on your own. I'm sure you could try to do a DMV search, pay for a DMV search, and try to see if you can find it through there.
So do when people, take their kids like that, everybody has Social Security numbers and so when kids go to school, do they have to register with a Social Security number when they go to school? Maybe that's, a way to.
The school is not going to give you any. They're not going to give you, if you're not on that, paperwork. The school is not any schools around here. They're not going to give you any.
Even though you signed that legal document that says you are the parent.
In my experience, if you were not on that paperwork and you don't have if you don't have an order. A lot of schools are hesitant, which I understand. I mean, I don't want someone coming in, getting just saying I'm such and such, and then taking my child or doing. I mean, so I'm not blaming the schools at all.
For sure.
I think we have school attorneys and their colleagues, and they do a great job. But you have to go through the proper steps, and that's why I'm saying when we talked about earlier, even if you don't know if it's yours or not, you have to stay somewhat close, because if you don't stay close, if you don't have that information, you're going to spend a lot of time, you're going to spend a lot of money trying to find and trying to, get information. Like, for instance, when I file a custody action, I have to have the child's name and birth date, right? Some people don't even know. I don't know when they were born. I don't have that information because they weren't involved or they were shut out. They had an argument 2 days before, and now they don't have that information. So my advice would be stay close enough. I'm not saying, cuddle up every day because that's what
Right.
that's what they want or whatever the case may be. But you have to stay relatively close enough so that you can have the information that you need to do what you got. It's like I said, we're not trying to belittle it, but you have to be able to play the.
Understand the game
You
and,
gotta
and play
understand it.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
So my thing is like as we get kind of close to wrapping this up, I just want to be super clear. Jimmy and I are two men trying to get information about a system and a process that we're unfortunately familiar with. We absolutely supporting your kids and taking care of your business.
Yeah.
We're just trying to. Most of the questions we have are more so in reference to
equity in the parent.
yeah,
in the
past
parenting.
experience and just letting people know, our kids, their kids, our neighbors, people, whoever, letting them know it doesn't negate us from any mistakes. This isn't pushing accountability on women or anything like
for
that.
sure not.
The whole point is, as parents, just understanding things. And it's so easy to say systematically they against the black man and the black family. And it's like, well, the information was right there.
Well, give us the rule. Let us get the rules now. Let us get how
So
to
that's
engage this process, right?
For sure.
And and like again, it's not just attacking the court system, but if you want us to play the game, give us all the rules.
Yeah, let us know what's up.
Give us the playbook that we need to follow accordingly. So it's enough equity spread so the child does not suffer because they don't have one parent or another.
Right, and that's huge. Like, so I'm a big proponent of, to have healthy communities, we have to have healthy families.
For sure.
And that does not always mean our families have to be together in the same house.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have people on the flip side, married people who are staying together just because they have kids, but the household is unhealthy, right? So I would rather see kids see healthy parents than unhealthy parents in the same household.
Sure.
So I mean, that's a whole nother nother topic.
That's part two.
That's gonna be part
But-
two with
So-
Kima and everything, because it's
So
all
I
mental
definitely
health and
think-
everything is in.
Yeah, I
jumbled in
definitely
there.
think that we will have to have healthy families, and you need especially our 4 judges in Wake County are going to say both parents need to be involved in this child's life.
Gotta
And I
be.
tell all my clients, I mean, moms and dads, there's something that mom can do, some things that mom can teach and do that dad can't do, some things that dad can teach and do that mom can't do. We have to have equity. We have to have a balance. We need, especially in our community,
for
the
sure.
more help, the more support we have for our children, I mean, the better, the more opportunities we can do. So let me touch on, I know you guys have been asked, I think I've been glossing over it. With the custody visitation schedules, you can have a 50-50 like we talked about, or you can have a joint custody schedule. So 50-50 is different than joint custody schedule, where you have 120, at least 100, each parent has at least 123 overnights. And then you have the third one in my mind, which is when a parent has primary custody and the other parent just has a visitation. So if one of the parents do not have at least 123 overnights, they are considered the non-custodial parent that has just a visitation, right? Okay. And that plays into our child support worksheets, because there's a worksheet A and a worksheet B. There's also worksheet C, but we'll talk about that in the next one. But worksheet A is when there's a primary.
I don't know what C is, but it's
no, it's just when you have multiple children. But the worksheet A is when you have like primary. One party has primary custody and the other parent has less than 123, so just has a visitation, a non-custodial parent. Worksheet B is when there's a joint custody that 123. So in worksheet B, the logic is, hey, each parent has at least 123, so it's almost equal. So you're paying for stuff in your home, they're paying for stuff in their home. Now, not saying that the parent who makes more money still might not have to provide some type of assistance, because the logic is we don't want the child, even on a joint custody schedule, eating fillets at your house and eating oodles and noodles at the other parent's house. So we do have to do a balancing out, but you're not going to be contributing nearly as much as you would on a worksheet A if you don't have any,
right.
If you are a non-custodial parent, don't have 123. So it does affect the money. And I want to reiterate what you're saying. I'm a proponent of supporting your child.
Right.
That's different than child support. I'm a proponent of supporting your child. I think no matter if it's mom who has custody or dad who has custody, you guys have to have some conversations. Like I
sure.
said, I'm a new parent. I understand it takes more than $50 a month to raise a child. You get what I'm saying?
For sure.
But there's also, I know my pastor would say, it's not always equal giving, but there has to be equal sacrifice. Do what you can. So some of your support outside of child support going through the agency, it might look like,
Time.
hey, I really need. I will have to pay for daycare, but if you can watch or you can, parent on these days, it's going to save all of us childcare. Or it might look like, hey, I'm having some issues with food or whatever the case may be in the house. Is there something that can you bring over this? Or, hey, you have Sam's car. I need you to get Pampers every.
But it's conversation and communicating.
We can talk, and we don't always have to. My first thing is, now I'll defend you if we're in court. We're going to go toe to toe if we're in court. But if we don't have to go to court and we can save a whole bunch of money and save a whole bunch of time, I'm a big proponent of supporting your child, whatever that looks like. And it's different for every household.
Absolutely. It ain't no set blueprint, universal blueprint.
And it doesn't always have to be, finance, you need finances. Yeah. I'm not counting that away. But it might be different. We can save some money and time if you can provide you get a deal at whatever at Walmart. Sure. You can get this, and this, and this, and I don't need you to just bring over 400. Because some people say, "Look, I really don't have it," and then that puts you in a position with child support where if they have this taken out against you that you're supposed to be paying, and you really don't have
you can't even maintain.
You're accruing arrears, and then that's it can mess up your license and your passport, and you can deal with jail. And it's a whole bunch of stuff.
Let's talk about going to jail. With those instances,
I'm head out.
So, so I understand why it's really to entice payment, right? It's supposed to be to get people to pay, and you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. We're not just talking about child support, even when we're talking about alimony and post-separation support and all that kind of good stuff. When you're facing jail time, some people can get the money some people can find it. Some people. But some people can't. Right. And then the logic is, well, how much sense does it make to sit somebody in jail and then get further behind, get fired from their job, and we don't. So
who's suffering then?
So the whole thing is we don't have to we can have conversations, and no matter how mad we are, I treat it like a business. Yep. You can be mad at all your manager, whatever. You can go in and have a conversation and treat it business like at some point to say, this is what we have to do for little Timmy. This is what we got to do for Susie.
But it requires people to also be honest, right?
Right. It does require.
And that level of maturity as well.
And that's a huge level of maturity, which is going to be a beautiful thing for part 2, because I think this is extremely deep and extremely sensitive subject. And I can only imagine what the comment section is going to look like. About this.
Don't hurt us.
Yeah. Like, no, hurt us, because accountability is big for me. So as we wrap this up, again, I just want to reiterate that none of us are against the financial aspect of child support.
Sure not.
2 of us are trying to get a better understanding of the system that we're in, that we've been in, and that some of you may be in another time. Right?
And to give people resources. Right?
Absolutely.
Resources are big, because we constantly struggle to find the knowledge to be able to not combat, but to just be equipped to have the conversation.
Yeah. And that's super deep. And I think that's why the beauty of Barbershop Therapy, where the therapeutic side of it, the mental health part of it, the maturity, the finance, all this stuff ties in together. And I can honestly say that I just was not the most mature person when I first got hit with child support. Like, I was just like, screw everybody. Y'all out to get me. The white man, it's like, bro, it's not that much. Like, you're not making enough money to be getting robbed.
That's the one thing. It's based off your gross income. So which is a whole nother topic, because not your net, not what you actually bring home.
So and it's like, but essentially at the end of the day, as a community, if we're taught better as men to value ourselves, and we're taught better men to inform ourselves, and we take that accountability ourselves, and as a group we begin to educate people
share information
and share that information, then we don't repeat these cycles
and that's huge,
these situations.
I've had moms and dads who've been put on child support, and they were coming into my office willing to do more than what child support even say it. And that's to me to say, man, we got to talk to each other.
Yep.
Like, hey, I'm willing to do da-da-da-da-da.
You looking at the guidelines like,
and I'm only
wait a minute.
doing, all right, cool. You gonna play this game with me? I'm only gonna do this. Yep. So we have to have conversations. We have to educate ourselves. Having a resource. And I tell everybody, hey, even if you can't afford an attorney, you can get $150, $200 to do a consult. Sit down with somebody and go. And my office is bad for this. Don't tell my people who do my accounting. But I often say on my consults, hey, if you have any other questions, if you think of something else, feel free to hit me back up. I'm more than willing. I love educating. I love talking. Let at least get some education, because like you said, we can't play this game if we don't know the rules. I'm not gonna go sit at a poker table. I don't know how to play.
So in 2 minutes, like if we can wrap this up in 2 minutes for the sake of time, in 2 minutes, what are key pillar things you would tell to a male or female parent when it comes and they split? What are a few
basic
points, pillars that you would say these are the steps you need to take? We know don't sign nothing yet. That's we got.
Well, get your test. I'm not saying go 4 years without signing something. Get your test.
I really wish I'd have met you in '96 when I find that. You remember when they had the chirp phones with Sprint? I signed that contract. Boy, I think it was on my credit for about 8 years. They like, well, you signed it. I'm like, what? That's about $10,000.
I think number one, I tell everyone, you don't start putting stuff in writing, or you don't start your custody case when you come in my office, right? Your custody case has already started. Mm-hmm. So you need to be in the mindset of everything I text, everything I communicate could be read before a judge. The voicemail, the voicemails are played in our court system. Mm-hmm. A text message are played. Like we have the ability to subpoena Instagram. We can subpoena Facebook messages. We can do all of that and get that information.
So that first step alone kills impulse, right? So
exactly.
That first step alone,
emotion, hopefully.
It takes the emotion out of everything, and it's like you got to think logically, because he just told me on this podcast, on whatever platform I'm listening to it on or watching it on, he just told me that everything I say can be used against me. I had no idea about that. I know now, but I had no idea about that. Imagine the emotion that gets pulled out of that, and
if I go into court and you're asking for custody, and she's saying that, or he is saying that, well, I can't be around this person. I've kept my distance because X, Y, and Z. And you're like, no, you're just trying to shut me out. And then they bring in a string of your Instagram message where you're cursing a slam out. This has happened. Yeah. I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna do this. You playing with the wrong one. And then you're looking at a judge who has to. In Wake County, we have one judge per family, right? Mm-hmm. So that means the judge that you get when you enter in the system. Now, if you have other children, you're staying in that judge's lineage, right? Yeah. So that judge is gonna know you.
I just want to testify to that is very, very true.
Yes, that judge is going to know you,
young lady, repeatedly.
Yes. So you thinking that's your first impression is somebody getting cussed, slam out. So now they're looking at now as when you're coming in, you're looking at custody, and they're talking about, hey, you need domestic violence classes. Now you need parenting classes before you can even take these steps. So does
that cost more when you take those classes as well?
I mean, well, yeah, everybody gonna get. Yeah,
everybody's getting paid.
Yeah, you gotta pay for your classes.
120.
With COVID now, a lot of those classes are online, so you're not going out on Tuesday to every Tuesday to do it. So
but you're still
you're still paying, but it helps a little bit.
Okay.
But so now you're dealing with all that. So that number one thing of, hey, document everything, right? And that helps take emotion and impulse, and stay close. No matter what, stay involved. Like you have to know what's going on. Involved. Like you have to know, like teachers and schools and doctor's office. I'm amazed at people who don't know even the doctor. Now if you're getting shut out, maybe you can't find it out. But hey, if there's a doctor, you don't have to go to the doctor's appointment to be able to call up a doctor and say, hey, you saw Timmy. What I need to do get Timmy's, find out what happened with Timmy, or whatever the case may be.
Say,
like, and if I
kind of sheriff's department.
if it needs to be,
sir, we ain't give you no information.
Well, yeah, if it needs to be, hey, I need you to bring in your birth certificate, or I need you to, whatever, or you need to get an order, whatever the case may be. Like staying involved and knowing what's going on is necessary. And the third, if y'all can communicate. Like I said, we can stay out of court if y'all can communicate. Go to an attorney. Now, one attorney can't represent both of you guys at the same time, but you can have two attorneys to say, look over my draft. If I'm gonna do something, look over this draft, or what do you think? Is this a good parenting agreement? Let's consult with them. I think those things can help out as you go along. But I say number one thing is always get a consult. Yep. Do a consult with somebody so you know the lingo, know the language, know how to play the game, and then maybe you can take that to the mom or dad and say, this is what they're looking at. We can do this on our own.
And that changes the game. That shows. I think had I done that in the past, I would have shown I was serious about being active in my child's life. Right. And two, it's like, wait a minute. You know, it's culturally for us in my area, it changes the game when somebody brings legitimized, paperwork.
And I think Jay makes one of the biggest points is to take the emotion out of it and deal with the facts.
Right.
Be able to communicate. Documentation and understanding what you're signing, the documentation that you're signing. So, now we're about to wrap this up, but we're definitely going to do this again.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And so
I would love to. I appreciate y'all for having this area to get this out.
Thank you, man.
This is awesome. So that was a great segue. This is Barbershop Therapy. We cutting through the problems, even child support. Jay, can you tell us where you're located, city, site, handles, whatever.
So I have a firm, Jerkins Family Law. We are in Raleigh, North Carolina on Wake Forest Road at this point. So you can get it. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, our phone number 919-719-2785. So we can, like I said, phone number 919-719-2785. We're located on Wake Forest Road. We would love to be of service. Feel free to give us a call. We can set up a time for us to talk. Right now, we're doing a lot of phone consults, Zoom consults. Like I said, if you just want to sit down with somebody, have a conversation, learn the lingo, understand what works best for your situation, feel free to let us know. It's me, as associate, board certified family law specialist. We're glad to sit down and talk with you and how you need to handle your situation.
All right.
Beautiful thing. Part 2 is going to be interesting.
3, 4, 5.
Part 10.
We got a lot. Yeah, we didn't even get into married. So we just dealing with custody right now.
Stop right there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being a part of Barbershop Therapy. This is Mr. Jamar. I'm Jimmy. This is Mr. Jay, and we appreciate you, and we cut through the problems.
Excellent.
Yes, sir.
Can we cut through the noise? Talk about the pain till our problems all fade away. You either build or destroy. We gotta make a change, so we might as well start